This podcast is brought to you by the Florida Road to Resilience Summit, hosted in beautiful Tampa, Florida on February 12th and 13th of this coming year. We will drop the registration link in the notes for this and all future podcasts.
Welcome to our very first episode of the Road to Resilience podcast. I am Ashley Harrigan, and I am the founder and director of Fair Winds Resilience, located in the DMV area. And I will turn it over to my co host, John Ray.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashley. I am so happy to be here. I'm actually really excited about this podcast. I know it's something you and I have talked about for a really long time. This podcast is about building community resilience, making sure that no community is left behind. And that's why we're here today. Ashley?
Yeah. So, John, I wanted to talk for a couple of minutes, just for our audience that in our community that we are trying to build here. Can you give listeners a little bit of an idea of why we started talking about doing a podcast, and what do you think is to be gained in the conversations around the road to resilience?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ashley. And when you and I first started having these discussions, and what is our why? Yes, we've been leaders in this space, and we've spent the entirety of our careers focused on building safer, stronger, and more adaptable organizations and communities. But more than those job titles, we've always seen ourselves as partners. Working alongside public officials, private industry, and everyday citizens for that matter. And, our goal has always been to advance resilience in a way that truly impacts people's lives. And when we say that, we mean all people, everyone, whole of community, no community left behind, but also no person left behind. And that's kind of the approach that we've taken. That is the mindset that we have. This is about resilience for everyone.
I couldn't agree with you more. You talk about our former careers and coming out of working for government for a long time. I think we both have a lot of awareness around the structures in place, funding mechanisms, and incident management, and all of the terms and the apparatuses. I think that's a word, apparatuses. um, that
Yeah.
are in place during a disaster or an incident. And I think for me and conversations that we've had, we both agree that some of those apparatuses work, some of them need improvement, as any system can always be improved. But I think one of the things that united us and we agreed with, we always came back to, but it's about the people. It's about the communities.
Right.
And what could we be doing to serve them more? How could people be the focus of some of these conversations? And I think one of the things that was really appealing about a podcast is to have conversations that are focused on community, focused on getting new voices and interesting voices into the space of resilience, for them to talk about whatever the topic might be, whether it is disaster preparedness or what if about the mental health toll that a disaster can take on a community. Just shaping those voices and giving a platform and a space to expand what we think about in resilience. And a podcast seems like a great venue for that rather than another white paper or research paper that I think both of us are used to
Right.
coming out of the government. And so I think community starts with conversation, and we're both really committed to having those conversations. And so we created a place for it. And I think we're really excited about having people come and have conversations with us.
Absolutely. I think you did a great job of capturing, what the very essence is of why we're hosting the Florida Road to Resilience Summit, but more importantly, why we're hosting this podcast. we're facing big challenges right now. Chief among them, climate change, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and social and economic disruptions. Just to name a few. There is no single community or organization in this nation that can solve those things alone. Um, not only this podcast, but the summit as well is going to be our chance to bring together voices from across all sectors for a solutions driven gathering at the summit, but also for a solutions driven podcast here where we can try to unite communities and those regional strategies that do exist out there, you know, highlight and acknowledge the work that's been accomplished, but also, bridge the gaps where there's still work to be done. Because without doing that, we're not going to be able to ensure that no community is left behind. A few weeks ago, I had received a call from one of my Florida neighbors over on the East Coast side of Florida, asking if I would be willing to help her and her efforts. She was a victim of the last hurricane that Florida experienced, and there was a number of them if you've been paying attention over the last few years. But she's had a little bit of a tough road trying to recover from that, and her local community has not been able to provide the resources and support that she needs. As we all know, I think we can acknowledge, and this is not a knock on the bigger metropolitan areas, but those cities, larger cities, larger communities, they have resources. They also, in some cases, have you know large consulting firms help assisting them, and making sure that they're ready and prepared. They sometimes get a lot of federal dollars, to help them fund a program, their readiness and resilience. So, with all that being said, I did want to mention that, this is about, again, whole of community. It's about when I say cross sector, you know, we think about the infrastructure sector, the emergency management sector, the professionals that are helping manage these future disasters and crises. But I'm also talking about individuals, right, within the community, whether that's an HOA board member or a community member themselves. A sector you could consider a sector of resilience, individual resilience, right? And that's something that we're going to be talking a little bit about in a future segment as well. Um, and that is just as important as infrastructure resilience is, right? That personal, that tactical level, that ground level, boots on the ground resilience that every community needs to have in place. And I think that's the direction that we're heading. I know Ashley's had a little bit of insight to that from her role as a senior policy advisor, and policymaker in the federal government, with the new national resilience strategy. That's going to be putting a lot more responsibility on state and local leaders as well as communities. So that's something that is going to be upon us very soon, as these changes come down through the federal government, changes to FEMA, changes to how we get resources, how resources are implemented. It's going to be extremely important to stay tuned to that, and we're also here to help you stay out in front of the next crisis, right? So, Ashley, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the podcast was a natural offshoot of when we started talking about the planning of the summit and all of the work that we were doing. As we started developing an agenda and speakers and getting interest, we seemed to realize that there were so many conversations that we were going to have to limit and cut, because the summit is not a 2-week summit. It is a 2-day summit. And so the ability to have to edit and select which one of those conversations we're going to have to prioritize in a summit, um, did not seem to diminish all of the people who should be involved and all of the voices that we should highlight. And
Absolutely.
as we got to meet people and connect with people and start thinking about our vision, our why, we realized that all of these things are really important. And to the need for all of these people to actually be empowered and know that they matter within this space. And so I think the podcast is not just about empowering these people, it's actually empowering ourselves. We were
That's
able
right.
to bring together a lot of different people, and a lot of people really seem to connect with our message. And I hope that this is our way of putting a piece out there to say, hey, if you are worried about your community, hey, if you are interested in how some of these pieces connect, hey, if you're worried, and see, there are different priorities coming from the government, but my community still needs this, or my community is still lacking, some basic planning, or I just want to know where to start. We want to be able to give you a pathway, and we want to be able to, you know, hopefully make you think in a new and different way. And so the summit is important, but also please find this companion piece, and please, like and subscribe and continue the conversation. And because everybody is a part of a community, everybody's part of building this road. So I think we are here. We know what's going on. And we are really excited and motivated to help individuals and communities prepare. And I think there's a lot on that road. But the more people we have along the way, the better it is. So I think we've previewed a lot of the content and the things that we want to discuss. So I think the only logical next step is to get to it. What do you think?
That's right. I think we should. Let's do it.
Let's do it.